Hey guys, so I've had a request in the comments from somebody saying how do I get to 800, any tips? So I've got a game up here against an opponent from the UK rated 814, it's a 30-minute game, and in response to D4 they've opened with E6. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to play principled, okay, and this is really the key. Understand the basic principles of chess. To get to 1,000 and beyond, you don't need advanced tactics. Ooh, we've gone wayward already. Okay, this guy worships at the Temple of Nelson. Okay, so Queen's not really looking at this pawn. The Queen's looking at this pawn here. So what I want to do is I want to defend that pawn, and I would like to do it with development. So the easiest way is knight to c3. Defends this pawn, and I've got a piece out on the board already. Next, I'd like to play my other knight out, hit this queen and make the queen move away. So that's what we call developing with tempo, because black has to move the queen. Bottom line, okay. Notice also the light square bishop's going to have trouble getting out, but also the dark square bishop can't come out to here, to c5, yeah, where it would be looking at the f2 square. Okay, so now they've decided to challenge my knight. This knight is now pinned. So it's in an absolute pin. What that means is that this pawn is actually no longer defended. So even if I was to play my knight out to f3 now and attack the queen could actually come and grab this pawn with check, because I can't recapture, because it would put me in check by different means. So I can't play this pawn forwards because that would put me in check, so that's illegal. So what do I want to do? I don't have to defend this knight. It is defended by a pawn currently, but I'd like to defend my pawn and the knight if possible. So how about queen d3? Seems like a useful general purpose move. Having said that, if the bishop does then take my knight, my queen would be what we call an overstretched defender, because it's the only defender of the pawn on e4, so I couldn't recapture with the queen. I'd have to recapture with the pawn anyway. Okay, so what else can we do? One option is to block the pin. Okay, so if I put my bishop here, then the queen can't take that because I can recapture and I would no longer be in check. However, I would still have the issue, if I put my bishop here, that if the bishop captures the knight, I can't recapture, well, I can recapture with the bishop or pawn, but again, this pawn would be undefended. So what do we do? I think queen d3 looks okay. Well, I don't know. Still have the problem that the knight is the only defender of that pawn. So they've presented me with a little quandary. I think bishop out here would be okay. Then if bishop takes knight, I recapture with the pawn. Let's do that one. So I've now double defended this pawn. If the bishop takes my knight, I'm going to recapture with the b pawn. So in general, particularly with pawns, you want to think about capturing towards the center of the board, right? Because control of the center is very important. Now, it's taken 3 minutes so far, which is about right, considering we've got a 30-minute game on the board. Okay, out comes the knight. So the knight is now looking at this undefended pawn. Now I can defend that and hit the queen at the same time with knight to f3, which looks sensible. This pawn is defended here, double defended. So let's go ahead and play that move. Can't see any issue with that. If the knight wants to take my pawn, I simply take black's queen. So black's doing okay at this point. He's got 3 pieces out in the board. However, this queen has just been forced to move for a second time, and that has lost black some initiative in the game. Okay, so now castles looks very natural. This pawn is now under attack by the queen. If I castle, it defends the pawn. It improves my development and it breaks the pin on this knight. There's no longer a king there, so now I can, if I wish, move the knight. If knight takes there, knight captures, and even if we trade queens, that's fine. I'm up a piece. So I have a reasonable development lead now. I've got 3 pieces out on the board. That's worth a development score of 3. And I've castled, and that's worth another 2 points. So I've got a development score of 5 right now, compared to Black's score of 3. So what I would like to be doing as well is continuing to harass this queen, win more tempi. Tempo is just the Italian word for time, probably Latin word for time as well. So you gain time, you make your opponent use their turn to move a piece they've already moved, but in some way they are not being able to use the turn to develop. So Black still needs to get this knight out, get this bishop out somehow, which is not easy, too many light square pawns around it, and they want to get castled. So I'm expecting the knight to come out now, in which case I do have the option of hitting the knight, and there, so that's not a great move, because the knight will have to move again. So what are we going to find? Okay, the queen has moved again, and now that was unforced. That queen did not have to move. So Black has given up a tempo at this point. So now I quite like my centre. That pawn's defended by my knight. This pawn is defended twice. I could think about moving my knight around here to the king, to the king's side, hit the queen again possibly. I would also like to develop this bishop. So bishop d2 is playable, bishop e3 is also playable. Increases my control over the centre. I kind of like the idea of bringing my knight around. Depends which way Black's going to castle his king, because whichever way the king goes, I'd like my knights to close in on that side of the board. So maybe I'll just leave my knights here and keep it flexible for now. So maybe developing the bishop is a good idea. I'll put my bishop to here, so that if bishop takes knight, I can recapture with the bishop. So then I have a decent bishop on this diagonal here, looking down at the rook. Also maybe the knight here, if it comes out. But again, if the knight comes out here, I'll have e5, attacking the knight, force it to move yet again. So this queen move I think was slightly suspect. Didn't see a particular threat against the queen, but that is the risk of bringing your queen out very early in the game. Okay, now the bishop has moved a second time. So the bishop's already moved out here and has now moved back here. Now we do have queen and bishop looking down at this pawn here. However, it is defended twice. It's defended by the knight and defended by the king. So I'm not too worried about that, and I still actually have e5 now. And e5 would attack the bishop another time, would prevent the knight from coming out to this square, gains space in the middle of the board, which is a good thing. So let's play that move. Now where's the bishop going to go? It can't go here, can't go here. So he's got really 3 moves, and moving all the way back to f8 would be disastrous, so that's not a very good move. So they've really got 2 options. So one of the things that you find players under 1000 doing is playing moves that are not really thought through. But this whole idea of moving a developed piece more than once is a key one. So obviously this queen's moved what, 3 times? The bishop's already moved twice and is now going to have to move again because it's under attack from the pawn. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm busy developing. Okay, the bishop's moved back again to this square. Now, where's his knight going to go? The knight can't go there or there now. Can only come to the h6 square. All right, so now I see a target here, maybe for my knight. So I can play knight now to b5, looking at this square. Can't be defended by the bishop here because of the pawn. So what's going to happen? The bishop's going to move back. I think that's a good tactical idea. What else do we have? If I move my knight, the queens are going to be looking at each other, but that doesn't really benefit me. I'm going to play this knight move here, attack this pawn. So putting the pressure on my opponent. I'm already castled. I have a development lead. Another option is to move the king there, but then if the king moves, it can't castle. So what I'm trying to do in this opening is simply force my... Okay, that's an error. Okay, that's just a simple blunder. He's not seen the threat of the knight coming there with a fork on the king and the rook. Okay, so now the king must move. It's attacked by a knight, and you can't block a knight attack. You either have to capture the knight or move if it's a check. So now the king's going to have to move one way and then forfeit castling rights. So these rooks are going to have trouble getting into the game, and one of them is about to get captured. So where's the king going to go? See, I mean, this was a kick, but it ignored the actual threat. I think bishop back would have been undesirable, but at least it defends the pawn. But as it is, a6, completely unnecessary, falls for the fork tactic. And I've already got a very strong position in this game. Black's not going to be able to castle, so he's going to struggle to get his king safe. I'm about to win some material, and my knight is not immediately going to be recaptured. Okay, so let's win the rook. I do have this square. And again, another pointless move. That simply drops a pawn. And now I'm attacking this bishop, which only has one square, and I can save my knight. And now we're missing 2 pawns on this queen side of the board now, the left-hand side for white. I'm attacking the bishop. I will happily trade off my knight for that bishop, even though it's not a very good piece. My bishop's looking at this pawn. It's defended only by that guy, so if I can capture him, king recaptures, I win another pawn. And I've completely then opened up this side of the board. So you see, if I'd moved my knight over here, like I was thinking about, I would have missed the opportunity to jump in and grab this fork. So I left my knight in the middle. Alright, now I can capture this knight. There's no real major threat. Yes, it's looking at this pawn, at this bishop here. And if I recapture that, I have to recapture with the pawn. But in this case, I don't think that's a bad thing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab the bishop. Because if the knight takes here, yes, I've doubled my pawns on the d-file, but I'm anticipating the king's going to capture that knight. So if it doesn't, I'm going to grab this bishop here, right? Okay. So now, I might even force the issue by playing a3 and try and encourage the knight to grab this pawn, this bishop. See what my opponent does. Because this will open up the c-file, and look, that's where the king is. So, where are you going to go, knighty? If he comes back here, I can just push up, c4, kick the knight again. Can't grab that because queen takes. If he grabs that, pawn takes. So you need to be thinking, what is my opponent going to do next? If I play this move or that move, what is my opponent likely to do? So now he might come here, but that's no good because bishop guards. Can't come there, 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 there. So the knight is going to have to retreat now to one of these 2 squares, or else it will be lost. Can you see how the initiative just compounds throughout the game? Because I'm just controlling so much more of the board. Look at all the squares that my pieces are covering here. I've got a knight here looking at lots of squares as well. My queen is looking at a load of squares. So I'm really solidifying my control. Let's just push up with these pawns now. We're coming after this king. And black's pieces are bad. This knight can't come out into the board because he allowed me to control the centre and advance these pawns up into the centre. This rook can't get out unless the knight moves, but the knight's only got one square and it's a bad square. Currently, I think everything's pretty much defended. That bishop is not defended. Otherwise, we are coordinated. So I might, for example, move my queen here, maybe push the pawn again, come after this pawn, backed up by the queen. That's one idea. Good to get the queen off the back rank. That would complete my development, which means my rooks are connected, so they're defending each other, and they like to be in that situation. The rooks work really well as a pair when they're joined together. So it might even be on a rank like they are now, on the back rank, or if you can get them both onto a file, they can work very powerfully in that way as well. This queen is doing nothing right now. See how much more space I've got in the board. I've got these 3 pawns already on my 4th rank guarding all of these squares. Total domination of this side of the board here. And that's what we mean by space. Space means I'm controlling squares on my opponent's part of the board. There the knight just moved into an unsafe square. A 1 move blunder, you've got to eliminate those. So bishop recaptures now. Means this pawn's threatened, but it is defended by the knight. And this is already, I think, a resignable position now for black. Okay, let's proceed with this plan. Move the queen here. If bishop takes here, knight takes, my queen is actually defended by the bishop here, so my queen is not hanging there. Next thing I might choose to do is maybe think about moving my rooks. We have a semi-open file on the E file because it's the only file where there is no white pawn. So that's a file that I need to be thinking about maybe attacking down at some point. But black's pawn here is well defended right now. But I am significantly ahead in material. I'm ahead a bishop and a rook and a pawn at this point. Got to watch out for those 1 move blunders. Yeah, the knight did have a safe square. Knight could have come to here. And if I took it off, it's defended by the queen or defended by the pawn. Even pawn takes is not a bad idea, because then black has a semi-open file and can put their rook on that file here. I don't like this queen. I still have 2 bishops as well, which is good, so that allows me then to use my pawns to neutralize this guy. So without a light squared bishop, it means that black now has a lot less control over the light colored squares, whereas I do have a light squared bishop. So I can control multiple light squares. It's going to be harder for black to defend those because he's only got his knights, queen, king. Right now that rook's out of the picture. So the general plan, I think, is just going to be to push forward with these pawns. So if you want to minimize blunders like this, hang on. to. Yeah. So with this move, what I would do is hold it there and say, if I move my knight there, is there anything stupid about this move? Well, yes, it's attacked by the pawn, so you just don't drop it. All right, bishop's now moved another time. Not sure what it's doing. So I'm tempted just to push forward with my pawns. Got a lot of control over this light diagonal here. So if pawn takes, and I've got bishop and then queen defending that place. Okay, bishop's now come around again looking, having a peek at this. But I'm okay because I've got my knight defending there. I could push the pawn here, put the question to the bishop, which it can't capture there, can't really go there, can't go there, can't go there. So I'm going to squeeze the bishop out now. Bishop, I think, is going to have to retreat to one of these squares. If he captures on here, I've got knight takes. And here, black's simple lack of material means that it's going to be very difficult. Okay, there we go. Right, now I can grab that pawn for free. Knight can't capture because bishop captures knight with check. Now the king has to move. Now I have another check with my bishop. Can't be blocked by that pawn because bishop just takes. Okay. And now queen here. Only one move for the king. Let's play rook to here. And the threat is rook to e5. Which would be checkmate, and also possibly wins the queen, but won't have time for that. So one other thing that beginners very often fail to do is to get their rooks into the game during the middle game. Sometimes it's tempting just to leave the rooks in the corners, but rooks are very powerful pieces, as you can see here. To move there would hit the king and the queen and win the game. So that pawn push now would be sensible, I think. However, black is in a very, very difficult position now. It wouldn't be checkmate. If I go there, queen would actually be forced to capture. So black does have a move, but loses his queen. And he's going to struggle from this point. But if you know, when the game's over, we'll play it back and you'll see actually how black loses the initiative very early on and has actually been struggling really from move 2, roughly. I did have a decision to make on the third move. But that's coming, and that's going to be the end of the game, really. I'll do a quick review when we're finished. As I also have a lovely passed pawn here on the A file. It's going to be quite easy to get that guy up. Defended by rook and bishop from that square. So there's lots of ways to win at this point. Also have queen takes there. King can't go here, here, can't take that, can't go there, can't go there. So that would actually be mate in 1 as well. That's actually the better move. Always play checkmate if you've got checkmate. Whereas this one is not checkmate. It's got queen takes. So what's Chris going to do? Very difficult. This pawn move may be an idea. Actually blocks, so if the queen goes there, it's blocked. And it also protects against this. So I think is probably the best move he has right now. But he's in a very sticky situation. don't think that works. I think queen here looks like mate to me. Oh no, he's got bishop blocks, but then queen takes. It's the only playable move, the only legal move, and then it's going to be mate on the next turn. He's attacking my bishop here, but it's no avail. He's got to do something now. There we go, checkmate. Alright, good game. So, let's review. White starts, plays a pawn move, grabs the centre. Plays a quiet pawn move. So I think he's probably got it in his head that, you know, moving the king's pawn first is a good idea because it releases the queen and a bishop. And he can't play pawn to there. I mean, it's playable. It's known as the England Gambit, I think. But it allows here white just to grab the whole centre. And now queen comes flying out. Knight to c3 should always be played, really, when the queen comes out to this square, because it's attacking this pawn. And now the pin. And I defend this pawn another time because this knight is no longer a defender. I think bishop takes knight would have been okay here. Knight's now attacking the undefended pawn, and this is a multi-purpose move. I defend the pawn, and I also attack the queen. So now, here is where black loses his first tempo. Has to move the queen. I can then now castle, defending my pawn that was undefended and attacked previously. So I have a development lead, and now the queen moves a second time, a third time. And for no particular reason. Now I move my bishop, and now the bishop moves a second time. So the queen's moved 3 times, yeah? Was it 1, 2, 3? And that's really 3 moves that black could have invested in playing the knight out, castling the king, preparing to get this bishop out, and he's wasted those moves by being forced to move pieces again, and now again e5, and now the bishop moves yet another time, and already I'm in a winning position in this game. Now I attack the weakness on c7 with a potential fork on king and rook, and here black misses the threat and tries to kick the knight away, but it's ineffective because the pawn's not defended. King has to move. Now black can't castle. Now black's lost a rook. Now black loses another pawn. So he's moved this pawn from a square where it was defended by the bishop to a square where it isn't defended. So I just grab another pawn. And now I grab a bishop and the king comes out into the open, kick the knight away, trying to provoke the knight to capture this and open up the file. Knight doesn't do that. I kick the knight again. You see all this tempo, tempo, tempo. Knight comes out now to a square where it is under attack immediately. 1 move blunder. Got to cut these out. Takes, bishop takes. Now the queen comes in. Looking at this diagonal here. Bishop moves another time, which again was unnecessary. I think maybe at this point, something like just moving the pawn, getting the king behind the pawns, and releasing the rook would have been better. This is a powerful piece and it never moved. Bishop moves again, I attack the pawn, bishop moves again. With a half of an idea of an attack here. And that isn't checkmate because I've got the knight defending. So I attack the bishop. Bishop cannot capture in the corner, has to retreat. Now I grab a pawn, grab the knight. Again, this knight is captured onto a square where it's attacked. Right? Loses the knight, check. King moves, check. King moves, check. King moves. Big threat, okay? Not really a threat. Queen moves and checkmate. Okay, there you go. Simple as that. So, biggest thing, if you're under 800, under 1,000, the 1 move blunders. Just got to cut them out. And I would say, well, try not to get too hung up about openings. Think about the basic principles. So controlling the center. So look, see what I did here, right? I've just taken control of the center because black allowed me to. Okay? Don't move your queen out too early. Generally a very good idea. I mean, this kind of trick might work against some beginners. So the natural move would be like knight f3, I'm going to attack the queen, right? And then the queen captures the pawn with check. Okay, that's not a bad thing. But it's not going to work above a certain level. Okay, so there you go. I'm happily developing. I'm happily winning tempo, forcing my opponent to keep moving. And sometimes they move even when they don't need to. So that queen move was unforced. And it's a move that he's not spent getting his knight into the board. So that knight to there would have been great because it allows him to castle. Okay, but he's not done that. Here again, bishop moves another time. So there you go. That's you can really get on the back foot very quickly from the opening if you don't follow the basic principles. And that's what we've just been over. So I hope that's useful for you if you're trying to break through 800 and get higher, the 1000 and beyond. Thank you for watching. Appreciate your support. Please subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and I'll see you soon.